Hi everybody, Mr. Farmer here. Today we're talking about 26.1, the introduction to labor markets. So what we're talking about today, we're going to start with this thing called the least combination rule, very similar to the margin utility per dollar from consumer behavior. Nominal versus real wages, just real quick note on that. Impacting productivity on wages, supply of labor, and then we're talking about the definition and graphing of perfect and imperfect competition. Imperfect competition, also known as a monopsony, kind of a fun word there. So first off, the least cost combination. So you started with this kind of scenario. So suppose the productivity of capital and labor are shown in the accompanying table. The output of these resources sells for $1. So whatever they produce, every unit being sold sells for $1. Both capital and labor are being hired in perfectly competitive conditions, and that's we're going to find out later means all the units are going to be hired for the exact same wage. $3 for capital, $1 for the actual labor. And what's the goal? You're going to try and produce 80 units. So just like before, you would have started out with the number of resources or number of units sold for consumer behavior. Now it's number of units you have on hand. Units of capital, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all up to 8, and then same for units of labor. You would have typically been given the total products. I just went ahead and did marginal product. So take a moment and try and figure out what combination of capital and labor you would use in order to produce the most amount, or in this case 80 units, for the least amount, hence least combination rule. Go ahead and try that for a little bit. So what you should have ended up with is the marginal product per dollar for both capital and labor. So I went ahead and did that, which is on here. So what we're seeing is for capital, per dollar, we get 8 units produced of whatever this good is. That'll sell for $1, and that was for our $1. And then over here we have the labor divided by $1 and divided by 3 all the way down. So in order to figure out how many units we should get, that would cost us the least amount to get our goal of, again, 80 units, we need to do some work. So we're going to go ahead and I choose the check method. That's just my preference there because I know it works every single time. So first off, 8 units per dollar or 11 units per dollar. Let me go ahead and do the 11. Okay, and you can keep it running total over here if you want, 11, so forth. Okay, 9 or 8. 9, once again, sounds good to me. Okay. Then 8 or 8. Well, both of those sound good to me. Okay, so 8, 8. Okay, so that's going to be plus 8 over here. So 11, 20, 28. Okay. Over here, for some reason I can only do straight today. Okay, so we'll do a little blocky. And then remember, what we've added is actually 24 units over here. It cost us 8 per dollar, but we actually got 24 units. So we need to make sure we do that. So we have a 28 here plus 24. So that's going to be 52. Very Roman-esque, I guess. Okay, and then we're going to go from there. 7 or 7. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and get both of these. So plus 7. Okay, that'd be my 59 plus 21. Again, you're not adding 7, it's 21. And that's going to get me my 59 plus 21. That's going to get me up to my 80. Okay, so again, what we've done is we now figured out that we're going to get, in this case, 2 units of capital and 4 units of labor, and that's going to give me my goal of 80 units. That's my least cost combination rule. Slight alternative, same setup, but now we're going to hire until it no longer makes sense. So what you're going to do is that marginal revenue product equal to marginal resource cost. Let's see. I am going to figure out how much it costs if I paid these guys $1. So when does it no longer make sense to do that? When my $1, in this case, the $1 here is my marginal resource cost. It costs me $1 in order to hire them or have that machine work. Do they produce at least that $1? So if each unit sells for $1, where do I still make my $1? When they produce 1 unit per dollar. So in this case, I would hire 7 units and 7 units, because after that, it cost me $1 to hire them, but now they're only producing a third of a dollar or half a dollar. It no longer makes sense for me to hire them. I would not do that. So in this case, you do need to be paying attention to what does it cost, or what can you sell this good for, and use that as a biomarker and compare that to how much do you get out of these people, or how much does it cost you to hire these people, machine, whatever else it is. So a slight different scenario. Usually it's just this way, so you're going towards 1, but that's the overall concept. Okay, now for the rest of wage determination, chapter 26. First off, some definitions. When we say labor, it's labor. Blue collar, white collar, purple collar, turquoise color. Okay, a worker is a worker. We're not differentiating between professional, between the owners of businesses, whatever else. It's people who work. Wages, price that employers pay for labor. Wage rate, the price paid for per unit of labor service. Earnings is a wage rate multiplied by the time working. Are these technically 3 different things? Yes. Are they interchangeable? You use the context of the question and the scenario. These are used incorrectly all the time. Technically, yes. Just use the context. The wages that an employee earned are this. They were paid a wage of $10 per hour. No, that's the wage rate, not the wages. Okay, what about the earnings? Okay, just let the context be your guide. So yes, there are some differences. Just context is going to tell you what they're actually looking for, whatever's happening here. Moving on, we're done with these. Little reminder, nominal versus real. Nominal is the amount of money received per hour, day, year, salary, wages, whatever else it is. It's just the actual amount. If you want to try and compare, though, you really should use the real wages. Do people actually get paid more than they used to if you adjust for inflation? Does minimum wage actually get more than they used to if you adjust for inflation? Yes, the nominal amount's higher. What about the inflation? Okay, has that actually outpaced minimum wages? Maybe that's a common discussion there. Some of you guys can look up if you want to. So let's kind of look at wages. Why do people get paid what they get paid? Well, it's typically thought that industrialized economies have a higher real wages because there's a higher demand for labor. So if you look at things like the Netherlands, the United States, this is the 2013 top 10 averages incomes by country. They're all pretty industrialized countries. Also, we get some smaller countries. So Luxembourg is usually on the top 10 ones because there's not a large population. So that does happen. Now, why would we expect there to be higher wages? Because they shift the demand, the marginal revenue product for wages, to the right. Why? That's what we're going to be talking about. It really deals with productivity. For instance, if there's a worker that has plentiful capital, okay, we talked about the output effect earlier. This is kind of the complementary good. If there's plentiful capital, then that worker can produce more than a worker that does not have plentiful capital. They don't have a machine to aid them. Tools help us. And if you have more tools available, you can produce more. How about natural resources? Great, you got a wrench, you got a computer, you got a whatever else, but you don't have the resource it relies on to do something. You don't have the hydroelectric dam in order to produce electricity. You don't have the nail to hammer into with the hammer you have as your capital. You need the resources. So is that available to you, or can you import it if it doesn't actually exist in your own country or in your own region? Can you import it? Can you get access to it in some other way? Customer with plentiful capital, but advanced technology. Okay, again, more industrialized countries are typically going to have more advanced technology, and technology's technology. Labor quality. Now, we're going to come in line with the more industrialized countries typically have a higher level of average education. That's it. Not an actual like, oh, they work harder. That, no. But as far as educational information, labor quality, that does benefit. You learn skills through education. You learn problem-solving ideas. You also learn how to maybe use some of that advanced technology, like a computer or whatever else, at a higher level so that you're just more efficient. So that can definitely happen. Then there's some other factors that affect productivity. So flexible management, a little bit of a newer style, let people lead into their strengths versus telling them where they're going to go. Culture that emphasizes productivity. The Kingdom of Bhutan, they want gross national happiness. Then their culture doesn't really lend to be more productive, keep working really. We want our people to be happy. I think it's a great concept. But some places do emphasize productivity over that. So it'd be a cultural thing. Domestic markets, how large is it? Is there, if you build something, will people even need or want to buy it? And also specialization. The more specialized, the more you can produce, the faster. We talk about this in comparative advantage in all other kinds of places. So again, going back to more industrialized countries, we would expect them to have higher real wages because they have a higher potential productivity for all the reasons listed before. And then we're going to align productivity with the availability and the ability to produce the marginal revenue product, the ability to produce money for the company. And if you can produce more for the company, they're probably willing to pay you more. At least that's the concept we're going to be using. So as you can see, real wages and productivity definitely go hand in hand, a little bit of general upward sloping with labor productivity. But this is also why I might look at the real wages. If you looked at nominal wages, it'd probably be closer to the red line. But if you adjust for inflation, it might look a little bit different. So again, this is another reason why you look at the real wages. So pure competition in the labor market. Numerous firms are competing with one another to hire a specific type of labor. So there's a large amount of demand. There's a large number of qualified workers, and for perfect competition, we'll assume that they're identical skill sets and availability with whatever that type of labor is. And just like before, we had the price takers and price receivers. Now, these individual workers are going to be wage takers and wage receivers. So here are the supply. This is going to be the supply schedule. So we have the number of workers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have the wage rate. You can see they're all the exact same, just like in the perfect competition. On the product side, it was all the same price. So the total cost for labor is going to be 0 times 10, 1 times 10, 2 times 10, 3 times 10, and we get this column. So the marginal resource cost, or the marginal factor cost, or the marginal labor cost, they're all the same, is going to be 10 minus 0 divided by 1 is 10. 20 minus 10 divided by 2 minus 1 is 10. So just like before, we see our wage rate and our marginal resource cost, they're identical for perfect labor markets. So what does it look like? Well, here we have up here is the perfect competition in the product market. Okay, supply and demand, marginal revenue, marginal cost. So what we're going to do is we're actually kind of flip this thing over. Okay, it kind of sounds weird, but it's kind of nice to remember this. If you flip the supply and demand over, we still have supply and demand, but if you flip the marginal cost over, now instead of going down, it goes up. And instead of going up, it goes down. Well, that kind of looks about like this, the marginal resource cost. And so there we have it. That's what it's going to look like. So supply is going to go upwards, demand goes downwards. And a nice little thing is, because we do practice the product market more often, you just kind of in your head flip this over so that this goes up here. Sometimes that helps people, sometimes it doesn't. With that said, here's a bigger picture of it. So we have our supply. Okay, if you want to hire this worker, you have to pay them this wage. This many workers, this wage, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And as you hire more people, you have to incentivize more people to come work for you, so you need to pay them more. Demands, that's the MRP. Then that gets carried all the way across, so that becomes the wage for the entire industry. Okay, and so if you want to work in this industry, you're going to work for this wage. So this supply is then perfectly elastic. They're perfectly substitutable, elasticity of supply and all that. And then we have our demand curve. So we're going to hire MRC equal to MRP, in this case 5. And we're going to pay them at a wage rate of, here. The next model is the Monopsony model, or the imperfectly competitive labor markets. So I really like this cartoon, and it's because it perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. We have the Acme Equine, Home on the Range, Cowboys R Us ranch suppliers, and they got low prices, big sales, 2 for 1. And here the cowboy comes and says, there are some advantages of living in a one-horse town. What we're saying is, this one cowboy gets to determine the price he or she pays to have his horse in the stall that night. They decide. So how does that reflect on the monopsonist? Well, there's one single buyer of labor. Okay, so right here, this is going to be my demand curve right here. This is going to be the business. There's one person. The type of labor, relatively immobile. For whatever reason, they're not able to move, maybe that's the only place that has that kind of industry there. It could be they're locked in financially, or they like the area, they don't want to move. But this guy, he can't pick up his stall and move. He's here at this spot, wherever else it is. So in this case, the firm, in this case, the cowboy, is a wage maker. They decide what the wage is going to be, just like the monopoly in the product market. So, increase wages for additional workers. All workers receive the same wages. And if I want to have more workers, I need to pay them more. So here we get the wage rates. Is going to be 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 8. Just like before in my product markets, when I want to sell my first unit, second unit, third units, I had to sell for a price of 10, then 9, then 8. Well, this is the product market. Now over here, we're in the resource market. So as I get more people, I need to again incentivize them to come work for me. So 1, then I can pay them 6, and then 7, and then 8. And again, just like before, everybody gets this $8 price. Now everybody gets this $7 wage. So in order to get my marginal resource cost, I go wage rate times number of units. 1 times 6, 6, 2 times 7, 14, and so forth. And then from there, I can do my change in total cost divided by the change in the quantity. So 0 changed to 6, divided by 0 changed to 1, 6. 6 changed to 14, 1 changed to 2, so that's 1, so that's 8, divided by 1, 8, and so forth. So we start graphing this, we'd see a couple different things. So at first, let's do my wage rate at a 1 unit, $6. 2, 7. 3, 8. So this is going to be the wage rate. Now let's mark the MRC. Same thing as before, so that's going to be my 6. So for the first unit, it is still going to be the same thing. Next one's going to be 8. Okay, so it jumps up a little bit. Next one, at 3 inch, my MRC is going to be 10. So what we notice is that my marginal resource cost is greater than my wage rate. Just like before, my demand curve was greater than my marginal revenue curve. Similar kind of a concept. My wage rate's going to kind of act like my demand curve act over here. So how to draw the monopsonist labor market? Well, again, here we have the product market beforehand. So what we're going to do is flip it over. Okay, I know it sounds a little ridiculous, but just go with me for a second. Here's what it's going to be. We have the downward sloping MRP, doesn't change from perfect competition. But now we have that supply curve, which was my wage rate from before, and my MRC. Okay, zoom in a little bit here. So how many units are we going to hire? MRP equal to MRC. So right here, go down, I'm going to hire QM. M is for monopsonist. And then what am I going to charge them? I'm going to charge them whatever they were willing to work for. And willingness is supply. Well, this many workers were willing to work at this wage. Okay? Charge that wage. Just like before, we said I'll produce the Q amount of units, and I'm going to go to the demand curve because you said you're willing to do it here. Now I'm going to go to what you're willing to sell your labor for, the supply curve. So again, talk about the least combination rule, nominal versus real, impact on productivity, and really how that links to MRP, supply labor, and then perfect and imperfect competition, the definitions and the graph. All right, till next time.